Hey there, home church. Welcome to this week's online sermon. We hate that you missed us Sunday morning, but at least you're able to jump on now and check out what we discussed this Sunday at church. So this month in October, we're kicking off our new series called New Mission. And we've been going this entire year off of the verse in Revelations where Jesus says, "Behold, I make all things new." And we've talked about the new wind, the new joy, the new freedom, all the new things that we have from a life in Christ. But the reason this series is so important is because if we miss this, if we miss our new mission, then we're wasting our time and our chance with all the other new things that God has given us. So this month, we're talking about the mission that Jesus left us with before he ascended back into heaven. And today, we're talking specifically about our mission of being fishers of men. So as believers, we are called to be a part of the work that God is doing. We're called to be a part of the work that Jesus started and he left for us. And we have a vital part in the work that God is doing on earth. Because out of all creation, we are the only creation that has been given a new mission. Horses haven't been given anything to do. Fish haven't been given anything new to do. Mountains are still doing the same thing. The sky is still doing the same thing. But human beings, God's greatest creation, has been given a new mission. And today we're talking about the mission to be fishers of men. And in Matthew 4:18 through 22, it says, "While walking by the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. And he said unto them, Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. And immediately they left their nets and followed him. And going on from there, he saw two other brothers, James, the son of Zebedee, and John, his brother, in the boat with Zebedee, their father, mending their nets, and he called them. And immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him." Now, Jesus is speaking to these guys, and he told them, "I'm going to make you fishers of men," because they were fishermen. It's what they understood. And today, Jesus is still telling us the same thing. Whatever job you have, whatever occupation you have, Jesus is saying, I want to use you and your skills to make you fishers of men. I want to equip you to go out and tell people about me and win people over for me. Now, our mission is to be fishers of men, and we've been chosen to go out into the world and to continue the work of Jesus. We've been chosen to go out and search for people that need to hear the good news about Jesus Christ. We have been chosen to go out and be fishers of men in the world around us. So let's look at a few things that are going to help us out. If you want to fish for men, the first thing that you have to do is focus on the first thing that Jesus said to Peter and Andrew. Whenever he walked up to them, he didn't immediately say, "I want to make you fishers of men." The first thing he said was, "Follow me." And if we're trying to lead people to Jesus without first being followers of Jesus, it'd be like tying a plastic worm or a rubber worm on a hook and throwing it out in a parking lot and expecting to catch a fish. It just doesn't work that way. And we've all seen people in the headlines and preachers in the news that have gone their own way and aren't really following Jesus, but still trying to lead a group of people, and it always ends badly. So if we want to lead people to Jesus, we have to follow the first instruction that he gave, was to follow me. Now, once you're a follower, you have the power to do exactly what Jesus told us to go do. Go fish. Now, I'm not talking about the game that we used to play as kids where you'd ask if anybody has any sevens or if anybody has any fours or anybody has any queens. I'm talking about going out into the world and finding people that need to hear the good news that Jesus Christ died for their sins and rose again on the third day. So, we start with the question, where'd you catch that fish? Now, you ask any seasoned fisherman that after they're pulling a fish out of their boat or out of the live well, and you ask them, where'd you catch that fish? Some of them might say, the water. Most of the guys that I know that fish, if I ask them that question, they're going to say, in the lip. That's where I caught them. But when we're talking about where you can catch fish, let's start by fishing in your family. Moms, dads, this is vital for you. If you don't fish in your family and try to catch your children for Jesus Christ, nobody else will. It's not the church's job. It's not the youth pastor's job or the children's pastor's job. It's your job first and foremost as mom and dad. You can fish at your job because I promise you there are people that you work with that do not know the good news about Jesus Christ. You could fish at school for our young people. This is a great mission field where you're trapped in a place for 6 to 7 hours a day, and you could tell people about Jesus there because they need it. Fish in your circle of friends. I'm sure not all of your friends are believers. Not all of your friends have a relationship with Jesus. You can fish in that circle, but you can also fish outside of your circle. You can go out and you can fish with people that maybe don't look like you or maybe don't even think like you. We can put those differences aside and all agree that everybody needs to hear about Jesus. So if you want to catch fish, number one, we have to go where the fish are. We go where the people are. Matthew 9:35 through 38 says, Jesus went throughout all the cities and the villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom and healing every disease and every affliction. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore, pray earnestly that the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest. Well, the harvest is plentiful. Well, what does that even mean? Well, it means the harvest is ripe for picking. It's time to go get it. In the way that we're talking today, we would say the pond is stocked and the weather is right. It's time to go fishing because there are people around us each and every day that need to hear the good news about Jesus. Some people came to Jesus when he was walking the streets and walking in their cities, but he was also known for going to people where they were. He found Zacchaeus in a tree. He found the Samaritan woman at the well. He found sinners at their house. He found people exactly where they were. He didn't wait for them to come to him. And as the church, we shouldn't wait for people to come here because that's really not what the church is for. The church is for encouraging the believers and equipping the believers. It's our job to go outside of these four walls and reach people for Jesus Christ. So if you want to catch fish, go where the people are. Next thing, if you want to catch fish, you got to have the right bait. I'm not really a fisherman, but I know that if I'm going to go fishing for crappie, I use a minnow and a little jig, and I throw it out and I wait for the bobber to leave. If I'm fishing for catfish, I put some stink bait, or depending on where you're from, it might be stank bait, but I put that on there and then I throw it out and let it sink. But if I'm fishing for bass, I'll put a spinner bait on there and I cast it out and I reel it in real slow because different fish take different bait. The good news about the fishing that we're doing is we don't really need different bait because we have the best bait for what the world needs today, and that is the gospel. Hebrews 4:12 says, for the word of God is living and active, sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing to the division of soul and spirit, of joints and marrow, and discerning the thoughts and intentions of the heart. This is the only bait that we need for the people out there today because people are looking for something that will bring them hope. People are looking for something that will bring them peace. And that's exactly what we have in the good news of Jesus Christ. Next thing, if you want to catch fish, you got to cast a line. I could sit on the shore all day long and wish that I would catch a fish. But if I don't ever cast the line, it's not going to happen. So in the type of fishing that we're doing, we cast the line. We talk to people about Jesus. We tell people about the difference that Jesus has made in our lives. But in the end, God sets the hook. In John 6:44, Jesus said, no one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him. And you might be throwing that bait out there many times to the same person. But what I know is when they don't take the bait the first time, we don't just stop casting. We don't just give up on those people and say, well, they're never going to take it. They're never going to listen. We keep throwing the bait because eventually they might grab a hold of it and God can set the hook. God is the one that will draw them when the time is right. And it's our job to go fish, but God is the only one that can finish the job. God is the only one who can do exactly what they need when they need it to bring them to the knowledge of what Jesus Christ did for them. We just get to be a part of it by keep casting the bait out there to them. Once the hook is set, we got to get them in the boat. One of the most heartbreaking things of being a fisherman is when you get a fish on the hook and you're reeling them in and you get them just about to the boat and you go to pull them up out of the water and that fish flops and they come off the hook. And somehow when that fish is on the hook, it's about this big. But by the time you get back to camp or get back to shore, that fish was this big and it was a monster. But once the hook is set, we got to get them in the boat. And the church is the boat that Jesus started building, and he left it for us to continue his work. Now, I said earlier, the church is not the place for us to bring people to be saved. The church is the place to come and to be equipped for you yourself to go out and reach people for Jesus. But this is the place where we come to find fellowship and community and belonging and encouragement. And that's where we want people to come once the hook is set. That's where we want people to come to start growing in Jesus and deepening their relationship with him. The thing that we have to realize is society will tell us that the church as a whole is a sinking ship. And this church is not a sinking ship, and it has no maximum capacity. We won't get to a point where we're happy with who's here, because we should always be wanting more and more people to come to know who Jesus Christ is. On April 14th, 1912, the Titanic sank after hitting an iceberg. And there were 20 lifeboats available on the Titanic, room for 1,178 people. Sadly, there was over 2,200 people on the boat, so no matter what happened, a lot of people were going to die that night. But the most sad thing about that story is that 705 people rowed away from the sinking ship that night. What that tells me is that there were over 470 empty seats in lifeboats. 473 seats that could have been filled by somebody that was dying. 473 seats that could have been filled by somebody that could have been pulled out of the water and could have had their life saved. And our mission is to fish people out of the wreckage. I've read interviews with people who were in lifeboats that rowed away from the wreckage and away from the people that were drowning. And a lot of those people later on in life ended up taking their own life because they said the voices of the people haunted them, calling them to come back, to help, to come save them. And they kept rowing away, only worried about their own safety. And like I said, the church is not a sinking ship as the world would have you believe, but the world certainly is. This world is a sinking ship, and God help us if we just keep rowing away in a half-empty ship. It's our job to go back to the wreckage and pull people out. It's our job to go into the world and pull people out. I'm worried about what they will think of me. I can't go talk to those people. I'm worried about what they'll think about me. Well, God help us if we're so worried about what people think of us that we let them continue on in a dying world and head straight for hell. I don't want to make people uncomfortable. I'd rather make somebody uncomfortable than see them end up in hell. Well, I might say the wrong thing. That's true, I might. But maybe God will give me a chance to correct that and say the right thing. We were fishing a few years back, and I pulled the fish in, and the fish had a green tag on it that had been tagged by Game and Fish. And as I was pulling it up out of the water, I saw the green tag, and I went to take the fish off the hook, and it jumped off the hook, and I lost it. And I put a new minnow on, and I cast my line back out, and within 30 seconds, my bobber went under, and I reeled it in, and guess what I reeled in? That same fish with the same green tag. I had another opportunity to finish the job. And just because I might say the wrong thing one time doesn't mean that God's not going to give me the right thing to say the next time I see that person. Our job is to go fish. Go into a world just like Jesus told those guys and said, I'm going to make you fishers of men. He's telling us today, your job is to go into the world and fish for men. Go into your world where you work, where you play, the people you're around, and pull them out of the wreckage that is the world we live in today. Because at the end of the day, our new joy doesn't matter. Our new hope doesn't matter. Our new wind, our new freedom, none of those things matter if we don't take our new mission seriously. Because at the end of the day, this is what Jesus called us to do. Not go to church and read our Bible and check off the box that we did that and make sure we say our prayer today. Those are all great things, don't get me wrong. But the most important thing he told us was go fish. Have a great week. We love you.